There now.
Mhm.
So we are live. Hello, everyone. Really pleased to be part of this event. So I hope you all had a great day so far. You found out some really interesting insights from everyone and managed to network as best you can via this platform. So my name's Ollie Sidwell. I am co-founder of RateMyPlacement. And I've got three guests with me today. They are all experienced placementers. So we've got loads of insights to talk you through. There's going to be three different sections in this panel over the next 45 minutes. So we're going to be talking about applications to start with. Then we'll come on to what actually happens on placements, and then some reflections on their placements too. So the three of them will be giving their insights to help you understand their realities, how that can help you when searching for work experience yourselves. Now, before I come to them and intro themselves, I'll just give a brief intro to myself. So I mentioned I'm co-founder of RateMyPlacement. I did a placement myself back in 2005 that sparked the idea for launching RateMyPlacement because we felt there wasn't enough information out there for young people looking for work experience. So myself and two friends set up the business when we did that, like I say, 2006, just as we were graduating. Did it evenings and weekends while we had graduate jobs until we finally went full time. And it supports us ever since. So I've now got a team of 40 people off the back of that idea. And for me, it was the placement that sparked my career effectively. So very passionate about placements and very keen to chair this panel today and give you insights, not only for myself, but also from these experts. So let's hear from those experts. So Sarah, can we come to you first?
Yeah, of course. Hi guys, my name's Sarah McPherson and I'm a quality manager at GSK. I went to the University of Liverpool and I finished my IP placement in the summer just gone. I worked in the supply team in the pharmaceutical supply chain and it was really good fun.
Great, thank you. And just so everyone knows, Sarah is tactically not with her video on just because we've had internet issues. So you'll have to imagine what she looks like.
Yeah.
Druv, let's come to you.
Hey guys, how are you? My name is Druv. I am a grad. I'm on the grad scheme. Currently, my final rotation. I went to the University of Birmingham, did a degree in chemical engineering, and also did a year placement between my third and fourth year at L'Oreal in supply chain. Also.
Great, thank you, Druv. And finally, Tony.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Tony, as Ollie said. I was an international business student at the University of Liverpool who did a placement at a company called Prospectsoft, and I'm now a full-time sales consultant there since graduating about 4 months ago.
Great, thank you. So you've heard from the three, we're going to call them experts because they are experts. They've gone through the process you're hopefully going to go through in some capacity. So we're going to spend the next 20-25 minutes hearing their thoughts, and then we'll have 15 minutes for questions at the end. So do send in your questions and we'll hopefully get round as many as we possibly can. Let's start though. Topic one is the application process, the key to getting any role. Now, I think the whole application process is a lot around trying to get jobs, but equally you face a lot of rejection through this whole process, and it can be quite difficult. So the question is, I'll come to you first, Druv, on this. Did you face any rejection when you were securing your placement, and how did you cope with that?
So yes, so I think I had a tally, and I must have been rejected over 30 times at various stages. Some from the test, some phone call interviews, some all the way to the final stage. And at the time, it was super disheartening. And I kind of took it personally, and I think a lot of people who were in the same boat as me took it personally as well. And I almost felt like it was because I was inadequate. And that was quite depressing as well, especially when you're trying to balance a degree while you're looking for everything. Two things that helped me, that really helped me cope, was one, speaking to people who had been in similar situations to me, in the sense where older years, who had done placement years. And one thing that I quickly found when I was speaking to all of them was that rejection is just a part of this process. everyone gets rejected, and everyone gets rejected way more than they get accepted. And when I understood that I was in the same boat as everyone, it made me feel less self-critical, which helped me focus on just doing the best I could. And the second thing I think is really just to understand that an assessment center or an application process is not just a one-way interview; it's always a two-way interview. In some form, you're also interviewing the company, and a lot of the times you're not getting rejected because of you're not getting rejected because of a lack of competency. You're getting rejected because maybe you're not the right cultural fit for the company. And trust me, I think long term you don't want to work at a company that doesn't fit your culture. You'll just be miserable, and it won't be good for you or the company. So once I understood those two, it really just helped me focus. And eventually I went to the L'Oreal assessment center. For some reason they liked me, I liked them. But once I took all the pressure out, it was seamless. And 3 years later, here I am.
Nice. It's a lovely story. You mentioned talking to other people.
Yeah.
How did you go about that? What did you ask them, and how did you feel at the back of speaking to other people about what you were going through?
So in my degree, a lot of my year was doing a year in industry as part of the degree. So I think first was it's quite a sensitive topic for some people as well. So when I first started, I didn't really speak to a lot of people who were in the same year. I just generally spoke to people year above, or friends from school that had done placements, because I was in quite a different situation in the sense where my degree was 4 years rather than 3 years. So a lot of the people had gone for their placement when I was in my third year, if that makes sense. So I had a lot of friends who were working on placements, so I could ask them and stuff. But then, with your close group of friends, everyone is going through the same thing, and I almost created a support system within my friends where we would talk about placements, we would help with research and stuff like that. So that's how I went about it. But I just think you also have your tutors at university. A lot of them are there. They've seen students go through this process over and over again. So just reach out, and if you're super stressed, there's always support. Add me on LinkedIn. Ask me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Lovely offer. Thank you. Tony, what about yourself? Because you've gone through various application processes, haven't you?
Absolutely. I thought what Druv said was really good. Oliver, you'll know him, and perhaps everyone won't here know, but I was on a panel 2 years ago, the same panel as what we're doing today. And it wasn't myself that said this, but it was someone else on the panel, that their university, mine didn't do this, but their university actually had sessions on a maybe fortnight basis with placement applicants who got together and spoke about their experiences. And I actually think, looking back on my time and my application processes, that would have been very beneficial, because almost counterintuitively, the place where I ended up speaking to other placements and understanding that they're going through the same thing was actually at the various assessment centres I was attending, when people are in actual factual competition, I suppose. So I think Druv's spot on in terms of you need to be resilient. Talking to people will certainly be a good protocol, and making sure that you're not totally alone, because I do understand that the placement application process and applying to several places and perhaps getting rejected a number of times can be quite a lonely task, and you might feel a little bit isolated. So absolutely speak to as many people as you can, and you will feel better about it. And at the same time, I always try to be quite positive where I can. And when I do get rejections, I did always perceive it to be a massive learning curve. So there's some times where you go through a screening process, a number of tests, a telephone interview, and eventually go to an assessment centre. And it can be quite easy to think it was wasted time, but I can't stress enough how much I learned from assessment centres I got rejected from. Not only in the sense that I may have bettered my interviewing techniques or my task techniques, but maybe realising that certain, like Druv said, cultural fits aren't for you, and certain job applications aren't for you. So it is really about taking as much as you can from processes, even when they don't go the way you'd hoped, and then putting those changes into further applications.
Yeah, very, very good. We get coaches at Rate My Placement, and one of the ladies that coaches us, she talks about feedback being a gift. And every time you get feedback, that is going to help you grow. It's going to help you learn. It's going to help you develop. So it may hurt initially, but actually that's only going to make you stronger in the future. Tony, how many applications did you go through, just out of interest?
It's a good question. I can't give you an exact number, but I'd say it's similar to Druv, probably about 30 to 40. Now, those applications can range from CVs that get rejected right away to, like I say, maybe 6, 7-step processes where you eventually get rejected. So an awful lot. It is a tough one, and sometimes it can feel like you're doing an extra 3 to 4 modules on top of the 8 you might be doing already at your university. But you have to be resilient, and like I said, it is all good learning experience. And if you don't do it during a placement year, you will eventually find that experience later on in life when you're doing graduate jobs and in the real world, which is what I've seen a lot of my friends who didn't do placements perhaps struggling with at the moment. So it's always good to learn those lessons early and better yourself and better your employability as soon as you can, really.
Yeah, really good tips. Both of you have touched on the assessment centres. So keen to come to you, Sarah, and your take on how you went through the assessment centre at GSK. Any top tips you've got to share with the audience?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, in terms of the assessment centre, I thought I'd maybe go through some points about preparing, and then also maybe some advice and tips for them, if that helps at all. So in terms of preparing itself, I kind of just did the generic thing first, I guess you could say, kind of going through kind of the generic interview questions that you might expect to come up, and kind of how I'd go about answering these. But I also found it really helpful to kind of practice these questions with actually other people in front of me, because well, for me, it was definitely one of the first interviews I'd ever had in kind of like a corporate kind of environment. Obviously you might have some kind of little part-time jobs that you've done stuff for in the past, but for me it was kind of one of the main big ones that I hadn't really experienced before. So it's quite good to practice these questions just with friends and family, even though it might get a bit embarrassing or funny at some points. So I found that really useful. One thing that I did find really useful as well, and I think is kind of one of my tips, would be to kind of make sure you do some background research into the company you're applying for first before you go to the assessment centre. It's good to kind of touch on and know their kind of key values, their goals, and also maybe kind of any ongoing big projects that the company's got as a whole, or maybe any charity work that they've got going on. I know GSK is quite focused on that. So they kind of like you to kind of know the goals and the values of the company as a whole. And if you can integrate that into maybe how that kind of relates to you yourself, or anything you've experienced in the past, that's always good to kind of make sure that relates to you on a more personal level. Some more tips maybe so when they kind of are going through the questions with you one-to-one, it's kind of always good to kind of get examples of what you've done in your past experience, and you can touch on anything, you know, that it's not anything just to do with your uni work, but it can be to do kind of with any societies you've got involved in, anything extracurricular, just anything that kind of supports your answer. So if, you know, they ask you anything about when was the time you've shown leadership, or when was the time you've kind of solved a problem, if you kind of start thinking about kind of examples before you get there, that will really help, I think, kind of trick and think about where you want to go with those answers. And kind of finally, for the assessment centre, I say I kind of guess this depends on which company you're going to, but if you kind of go there and there are other current placement students about, which sometimes they do have them at the assessment centres, it's really good to kind of go up to them and ask about their year, ask any questions you might have. It's good to kind of get feedback from them on the day. For us, there were kind of a few current placement students about, and they were kind of there to help us through the day, but also be there to kind of answer any questions we might have. So that was really useful. And kind of what everyone's said already basically is they are seeing if you're right for the company, but also kind of you have to see how you feel on the day and see if that company is also right for you in terms of the culture and stuff like that. But I think the assessment centres are done really well, and so you do get a really good sense of that on the day itself. So yeah, that's what I'd say for the assessment centres.
Yeah, great tips. From previous panels I've chaired, some students have spoken about actually getting in touch with the current student doing the role you're going for, sort of via LinkedIn if you can, or if you can find out via your current university, if they've gone from that university. That's a good way of understanding it as well.
Definitely.
We have the reviews on RateMyPlacement as well from all those students that have gone on these past experiences to sift through. So there's obviously lots of opportunities there. Before we move on to the second topic, which is on placement, Sarah, I'm really keen to know how you went through the process of almost like giving your answers, the question and answers, and doing some like mock interview questions with your friends and family. Because on one hand, that can be the most effective thing to do. On the other hand, it can be the most nervous, weird, and scary thing to do, to put yourself in a strange position with someone loved or trusted. So how did you go about that, and how did you get over that initial weirdness of that?
Yeah, no, I definitely know what you mean. So for me, yeah, I probably practiced the most with my mum and my dad, I think, probably. But yeah, so I say both. I kind of experienced it both with friends and family. I was quite fortunate that I think kind of like the others have touched on, that a few of my other friends were looking at placements as well. So kind of creating like a mini group where we'd get together and kind of like mind map some questions of what we thought might come up, and kind of ask them to each other. We did have to get over obviously that initial barrier that we're friends and we try not to make fun of each other, but I think we got over that, and I found it a bit better to kind of do it with parents in a strange way, because I don't know, I think I could just be a bit more serious probably with them. And then I could, because I guess they'd have more experience as well. I guess it was kind of useful, kind of my parents kind of being in companies as well that kind of interview people like this. So it's also good to kind of ask, friends and family, or anyone that's close, if they kind of are working in that kind of corporate place, and if they've done interviews in the past, because then they can kind of, when you're doing these interview practices with them, they can kind of ask you questions that maybe you haven't prepared for. That's also a really good one, to kind of ask them to maybe give you something unexpected as well, which helps when you actually get there as well.
Yeah, I like it. They can chuck curveballs at you.
Exactly.
Like it. Well, that's all about the application stage. So I'm quite keen to move on to topic 2, keep us on time. So we're going to talk about when you're on your placement or internship. And for many people, you have to move away, because not everyone lives home. Not everyone lives in the same area they go to university and goes on work experience. So let's talk about whether you've found accommodation, whether you've lived away from home. So Tony, can we come to you, because you had a really good experience of this with ProspectSoft, didn't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So ProspectSoft has quite a good, exceptional, really, to be fair, record as a placement company, and they've won many awards as the best small to medium-sized employer in that category. I think we've won it maybe 9 or 10 times now. And essentially what we did is I had 6 different placements who all needed to move away during my year, myself included. So I lived with 5 others in Oxford, and I'm from South London, and they were from various parts of the UK too. So I moved into a house in Oxford with 5 other placements. The way the company went about it was they put us in a Facebook chat, and because they've been doing placements for so many years, they were familiar with some good letting agencies as well as some good areas to live in. So we decided to live in Oxford, which can be a little bit expensive when you're on a placement wage, and you're sort of getting taxed and experiencing all these things for the first time, in essence, over the course of 13 months. It was a great experience. You learn an awful lot, and it was almost invaluable. And almost like the point I said earlier about the application process, you learn the struggles of balancing your finances as a working adult. And some people might shirk away from that and think, oh, well, I'd rather wait for that later on. But like I mentioned in the application process, these are lessons you will have to learn at some point in life. And I'm always one for learning them as soon as you can and bettering yourself as a person. So I moved away. And what I would say to people as well during the application process is broaden your horizons. Don't feel like you have to work where you're from or where your university might be, because as Druv and rightly said earlier, in terms of it being a 2-way interview, I went to many assessment centres wanting to get the job, of course, but perhaps not knowing what it was going to be like and the people were going to be like. And by moving away and going to Prospect Soft, it's been invaluable for me because I now work there full time. I was employed during my final year of university and all those sort of on a 0-hour contract, and now I'm a graduate. So they've kept me on basically since the day I walked in through the door, really looked after me, and all those experiences in living away and stuff really were invaluable and make you grow up in a fantastic way.
Yeah, really good that. I actually went home when I did my placement and commuted from there, mainly from a financial perspective. The average placement salary at the moment is around £18,000 a year. When I did a placement, it was about £13,000. So to be able to live away from home and balance that, I found that something I didn't want to do. And I was jealous of all those that did. So yeah, I can feel that the vibe you're getting from actually kind of living away from home and doing that with some different people than you're at university with. Sarah, what about your experience? Because you went to London, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so the GSK office is in Brentford. So I was living in South London for the past year. A bit different for me. I joined a little bit later, so kind of I found just a room kind of in a shared flat, which was absolutely fine. But for the majority of people, it kind of worked how Tony was saying. Kind of people would get together. There was a Facebook chat set up by the agency that employed us, and kind of people would kind of meet through there and would kind of form houses. And I think that's probably if you're up for that, I think that's the best way to have done it, really. And that's what I would have done if I was a little bit earlier in the year, because I think you kind of get both that work feeling but also that social bit of it. Because I think for me, that was me moving to London for the first time, and so when you're moving to a city for the first time, I guess it's almost like first or second year of uni, kind of you're getting to know kind of a new house, and it's also really good to have that social aspect of the year, to not try and forget that along with the work. Obviously that's the main thing, but also to have that social aspect of it and kind of know different people in different areas, and you can link through different houses and stuff. I think that's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, and moving on from the accommodation side, what was a normal day or an average day or a day in the life of yourself when you were on placement? What did you do?
Yeah, so ours was, it was normally a 9 to 5 day, although ours were a little bit more flexible on the timings. For us, it kind of really depended on kind of what projects were ongoing, which was quite good because it meant things were quite varied during the day. But so kind of day-to-day things, kind of you'd have regular weekly or monthly meetings with your team. You could go anything over, so I was in the supply chain, so we'd go through things like risk meetings, escalations of any key issues, because we worked mainly with external manufacturers, so it was quite good. We had quite a lot of meetings during the day with them, just getting updates and things like that to ensure everything was running smoothly. But obviously in between all of this time, you've got kind of a few hours here and there, which you do your own work in, because you do get, well, for us anyway, they always were quite good at giving over kind of good amounts of responsibility for kind of the different projects that you were doing. I definitely felt throughout the whole year that I was really contributing to the team with my work, which was really nice. And also any kind of training you might have to do. But then you can also put time aside, something that they kind of do push and focus on, to kind of network with different people. So it was really good to kind of get to know different people in different teams. There was always time for that. There's kind of this big kind of coffee culture going on where they're kind of very much focused on, go take half an hour of this day or that day and go downstairs, grab a coffee with someone, learn about their career, what they're doing now. They're very focused on that. So I say it was kind of a mixture of all of those things on a day-to-day basis, but it was good because it meant you were never feeling like every day was the same, and no like repetitive tasks or anything. So that's how it was for me.
Yeah, I love the coffee culture
idea.
Sounds good. And Druv, you mentioned culture earlier, so talk a bit more about how you spoke about culture fit. So I'm just trying to understand from your perspective, what was the culture like at L'Oreal, and what type of activities were on offer and available for you to get involved with while you were on your placement?
So L'Oreal is obviously, it's a massive company, but we own loads of different brands. So what you find is it almost feels like loads of little startups in one building, which is, in my opinion, is super cool, because it just means it's a super with a startup, like it has a startup vibe, which is like super friendly. Everyone is really accessible. The CEO is on the same floor as me when I was an intern. You pass them on a day-to-day basis, and it's really we really encourage questions and curiosity, and it's super fast-paced as well. That's what I liked about it. L'Oreal encourages you to rotate within your career. So unlike other companies where you might have a linear career path, there's a real zigzagging in L'Oreal. And linked to this, like Sarah was saying, we have a massive coffee culture, networking culture. We have something called coffee catch-ups as well, where you're almost encouraged, just where you are randomly in the lift or in the line for lunch, just to speak to someone and get to know what they do, how they do it. It's really encouraged to reach out to people who are in positions that you want to be in and stuff. And everyone's willing to sit down and have a 15-minute chat with you. Yeah, so it's really open, really friendly. It was a lot different to what I first thought before I applied, but I kind of got that feeling, that friendly startup, quick feeling when I was on the assessment day, and it so far it fits my personality really well. I really enjoy that aspect.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
sorry, no, in terms of the activities, for the interns and grads, they have a committee. So there's always social events going on, but also within the actual core of the workforce as well. Everyone goes to the local pub, pre-COVID, of course, Queen's Head on a Thursday. Everyone has a chat. We have loads of cool quizzes and stuff like that. So it's quite a social company.
Because I think the vibe you get or got from both of you there was just more how open both those businesses are and welcoming they are of students, how invested they are in bringing young people and young talent into the business. I think certainly looking to when I was looking for placements, you kind of look at these big brands and they look scary because they're massive, either high street brands or global brands that you've got your preconceptions about them, but actually once you start to get in them and actually understand how they tick, they're really, really welcoming for students, and they know that their placement programs and internship programs are the best ways for them to bring in the best talent. So it's great to hear you say how open they are. I want to bring us on to the final topic before we come to you for questions. So if you do have any questions, keep sending them in, and we'll come to Liz in the backstage to give a few of those over in about 5-10 minutes. But the third topic was around reflections. So it's always good to look back and give feedback to those that are looking. So Tony, I want to come to you first. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced, and how did you overcome them?
It's a good question, Oliver. Some of the challenges I faced. So I actually did a sales placement, which might surprise some people because sales isn't a module really taught at university. There's a number of reasons for that. One being it's very hard to replicate a sales environment in business to what it is at university because of the pressure that it comes with in a business, opposed to you can't really replicate that in a module, if you will. So I suppose the challenges that I found the most challenging were dealing with such pressure, working towards targets, trying to achieve those targets. I must say as well, the company didn't necessarily expect me to be hitting targets or to be making sales as a placement student. It just manifested that way. And it turns out I was rather okay at my job, shall we say. And it went well for me. But dealing with that and sort of seeing the real pressures of working in the business where the pressures are coming from perhaps external sources, whereas university, I feel like all the pressure comes from yourself. and you have to go ahead and deal with those. So I think dealing with pressures from people outside yourself, whereas at uni it is very much just you putting pressure on yourself to do well and to achieve the best you can, was probably the biggest challenge. But I overcame it well, and if I'm honest, I loved it. I loved the pressured environment. I loved the way you had to do something. And I had to achieve something on a monthly basis or whatever it might be in varied departments. So perhaps dealing with the pressure coming from other sources was the hardest, but something I really loved and probably thrived in, to be fair.
Mm. Yeah, it sounds like that almost team environment can be really supportive. And yeah, lots of businesses are so keen to bring great students in and help you grow. So I'm not surprised that really worked for you at ProspectSoft.
Yeah, absolutely.
Druv, what about yourself in terms of any sort of challenges or learnings from your experiences to share with everyone?
So in terms of learnings, I think obviously you learn how a super large business operates, and that's super interesting and something I think until you're inside the business you don't actually fully understand. And still to this day I'm learning more and more and more, and I'm just more like gobsmacked at how they manage such complexity in the most simple way. And so linked to that, I think and this will come on to my learnings, but I think you have to understand it's never in a company's interest to make your work or your life super difficult. So the work that you do on a day-to-day basis isn't necessarily, especially as an intern and a grad, isn't hard. But I do say the most challenging thing, and I actually think this is 90% of the challenge of working in a company, and it's similar to what Tony was alluding to, was some of your more of your soft skills based things. So when you work within a large company, you're working within a massive framework and across loads of different teams. And so for me personally, I found most of the difficulty when I first came in was stakeholder management. Loads of people want different things we all want the same things, but we want it to be done in a different way. And a lot of the time you're managing everyone's expectations, and also stuff like time management and your communication is linked to this. So I think for me, the biggest challenge and I guess the biggest learning was soft skills and how to apply these soft skills that you learn, not necessarily academically, but through just life experience into a business setting. So that's for me my personal biggest learning, and also advice: just get your soft skills A1, make them amazing, because it really helps.
Yeah, you'll hear a lot of university staff talking about the importance of employability skills, and it's hard to obviously put a finger on what employability skills means. And I think you've really hit the nail on the head there in terms of the skills and engaging with people within a business that you've never worked before, managing their expectations, communicating effectively with them. It can be really difficult to know how to play that, especially with different personalities and different people of different ages, backgrounds, levels in the business. So that's a really, really good learning. Right, final question to you, Sarah, before we come to the audience. What's your major advice for everyone listening about whether to do a placement or an internship?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say for me, it was definitely the best choice to make. Kind of giving you that first-hand experience for a whole year, basically, which is a really good opportunity. Even before kind of you finish university itself, it kind of gives you that advantage already as soon as you leave, basically. And it's really helpful to help with any future career plans as well. So just some like basic advice, just whilst on placement, kind of bits we've already touched on, but definitely take every opportunity to be able to network both within the team you're in, but also between other different departments that you might be interested in. I guess the good thing about kind of companies, big and small, is the different kind of areas and departments they have, and kind of with this culture of going to speak to different people, that makes it really useful to approach people, and I definitely recommend that. But I'd also say definitely if you've got other placement students in the company, definitely try and network with them as well. It's be really good to kind of get their perspective on what they're doing at the moment, and also the different teams there. And I met so many different people from across the business, which was really interesting. Another thing would be to learn about any graduate programs that the company has. It might seem a bit far off maybe to learn about this, but it's really useful kind of whilst you're in the company itself. You've got kind of the direct contacts with the current graduates, hopefully, which we did. So that was really good to kind of go with a coffee, to have go and speak to them for a little while and understand the program from their perspective, kind of face to face, without kind of using any emails or anything. That was really brilliant. And I'd also just say finally, just to have a good personal development plan in place. So this really helped all of us actually. So they kind of go through things with you, kind of what do you want out of the placement, what do you want to achieve in the next few months, but also what do you want to achieve at the end of your placement, and try and keep track of what you've set yourself, and also reflect back on this, as this can really help you kind of develop your a range of different skills over that year, which is really useful to look back on. So yeah, but definitely networking is the key thing for me, because for me it was definitely the stepping stone kind of between doing a science degree and getting into business. So and if that's something you're interested in, it's definitely helps you get in the right direction.
Yeah, wonderful advice. Thank you, Sarah. Right, let's come to the audience. I believe Liz, you're going to pop up and ask some questions here. There she is.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi. Go on, Liz. Hit these experts with some questions.
I have. I've been looking at all the questions on the right in the chat. Yeah, for those of you that don't know me, who think, who is this person who's just popped up? I'm from RateMyPlacement too. So yeah, I've got the pleasure of asking a few of our lovely students who are now employees questions. So I'm going to dive in. So we haven't got long, so I'm just going to go for it. So Druv, a really good one for you. So just kick off straight away. You mentioned about all of those placements that you applied for. How many was it again?
About 30, I say. 30 to 35. Wow. I tried to forget the number.
So I think that's a really good place to start, because a lot of students will be thinking, who do I apply for? How many applications do I make? And I just wanted to get some tips from you about how did you manage all your time around applying for all of those placements?
So I did it. When I was at the end of third year, I was in a bit of a 50-50 situation. So as I said, I did a degree in chemical engineering, so I wasn't quite sure what industry I wanted to go into. So I kind of applied for every single chemical engineering job that I could, and also other business opportunities. Supply chain was the common link between engineering and stepping into the business world. So I applied to loads. How I managed to do them, I just had to use my time as efficiently as possible. So the way I learn, I can't sit and do something for too long. So when I was revising or doing work, I would every half an hour where I would have a break, I would just apply to a company. And I guess there was a bit of, not competition, but I didn't want to be the last one left with no placement as well. So that kind of spurred me on. And also just when we were in our degree setting, I could just see everyone applying as well. So no one was talking. There's only thing to do. But yeah, I just every chance I could. And you know what, you kind of find that some companies asks very similar questions. So you get quicker the more you do them, if that makes sense. You kind of know the scenarios that you want to put in for the answers to the questions. But yeah.
Great answer. Yeah, definitely. I think we're answering all the questions. If you think there's topical ones that come up, I think this is something that you, Sarah, said as well, that actually like getting ready all your answers. I think if you can get a good almost like Word doc of all those saved, when you get all the feedback from the responses, you can obviously dive into those and use them in other scenarios if they come up, and keep honing and tweaking them to make sure that you're getting the best responses possible. So you're putting yourself best foot forward to get those applications. Liz.
Quickly, we've got a fire alarm here, which is great. So I'm going to leave it with you.
Yeah, I'll crack on, Liz.
Thank you very much.
Really good. We'll handle this. Right, I'm looking in the right-hand side, so I'm going to go with one of the last questions, which was, is it worth doing a placement year which does not translate into a graduate scheme? Anyone want to tackle that one? Go on, Tony.
Yeah, sure. So I say certainly because my job didn't translate into a graduate scheme. Now, I'm not going to say that every single job that and placement that you do, if it doesn't translate into a graduate scheme, you will get a grad job. But the employers aren't employing you for 12 to 13 months, whatever the length of time, without a small bit of mind to perhaps give you a job in the future. Because I also saw one of the questions, if you don't mind me mentioning, Ollie, saying the benefits between a 12-month summer internship opposed to a placement. And they sort of go hand in hand, that question. So once they go into it for a year, I sort of felt if I did a 12-week scheme, I did a couple which were 4 weeks long, and then I did prior to my placement year, and then I did a full 13-month placement scheme. Now I felt I probably only got into the swing of my job, and like everything in life, you enjoy it more once you get better at things. Probably about 3 months in, so I would have felt like the rug was pulled beneath my feet if I did 3 months at Prospects Off and then left. And then to add to that question in terms of going back to the question about whether or not you should do a job if they do not have a guaranteed graduate scheme, I think 95% of employers probably employ you for a placement with the mind of getting you into that job role. So as you do 12 months, if you do well for those 12 months, it would be surprising if that company did not have some sort of small mind to offer you a job or at least an interview. It's not probably in many businesses' interests to employ someone for 13 months, have them become very good at their job, and especially considering where they were at the start of their 12 to 13 month placement, whatever it might be. As you get better at a job and as you sort of become an expert, like you have said, it is obviously in the company's interest to then employ you and offer you some sort of job, because you'll be hopefully then be doing a good job for the company. If they let you go after a year and you were really good at your job, it wouldn't really just make too much sense if we're being practical.
Yeah, great point. And I think certainly from an employer's perspective, doing a placement scheme is a great way of getting great talent as a graduate. It's almost like a year-long interview process. And we see across all the companies that we work with on RateMyPlacement that there's about 50% of students return as graduates, which means 50% don't, whether that's out of choice either side. There's many different reasons why, but I think when you're looking at the employability of someone who's done a placement, if you've gone somewhere and want to go somewhere else, that is absolutely fine. I think I would not be scared of going to do a placement somewhere that doesn't necessarily have a grad scheme, because you're getting invaluable experience for that to then take on in your career and back to university in your third year, of course. I'm going to go to another question. How did you prepare for your applications, especially for online assessments? Anyone want to take this? Sarah, I can't see you, so do shout if you're waving.
Sorry, no. I think I could help with that. So I guess I kind of already went over how I did kind of stuff for the interview questions. I guess doing kind of the background research did help me with the kind of questions they asked in both the application form and kind of, so for kind of the kind of virtual online assessments, it depends what company it is. I know there are some differences between what they actually look for, but that can range from kind of situational tests to numerical or just kind of reasoning stuff. But I did find there was a few kind of examples of these online which are quite useful to go over, kind of more of the situational kind of judgment tests, which are quite good, although kind of using common sense is kind of a key one for that. But I did find some useful online resources for that, which was quite useful. So I'd say that was mainly my main thing for going through those for the online tests anyway.
Nice, really good feedback. Thank you. I'm going to keep answering as many questions as we can because I'm not sure what the team are doing, if they're still on a fire alarm or coming back to us. So Lula, you've just asked a question here. Does it make a difference whether you apply to a placement just as the application's open or just before they close or somewhere in between? How does it work? I know I've got an answer for this. Has anyone got an answer?
They know. But
yeah, apply when you can. Tony, did I see your hand?
Yeah,
Right.
sure. I'd say that is a little bit dependent. I do specifically remember I actually got 2 placement application offers during my placement application process. And the first one, I remember doing the telephone interview, and they were pleased that I was the first applicant out of everyone. And I think it showed an eagerness and a desire to learn. However, I'd also say, in terms of what Drew said, I wouldn't to a placement because it's near the closing date. You should still certainly apply. But like everything, and a little tip on that I was told. Now I can't say this is 100% true, but I was advised from my placement employers a little thing to make a good impression for the person that might be employing you was I often did 4 applications or 3 applications in a day, whatever it might be, but I wouldn't submit any of them. And then the next day I'd get up at 8 in the morning and I'd submit all 4 applications before 9 a.m. So that way, the person that is opening the emails and looking at your application, first of all, knows you're not one of the uni students that gets up at 2 p.m. every day. But secondly, it is on their desk first thing when they go into work in the morning. So it probably hits them right in the face and leaves quite a good impression that you're up early and doing that work. So I wouldn't not apply to a placement because you're a little bit late on in the process. But at the same time, if you can get applications off early, you're only doing yourself a favour, I would imagine.
Yeah, love it. Love the timing idea. That's so sneaky. Right, another question. Ariella, you've asked, is it acceptable to ask about the salary in the interview, or does that not look good? Because some companies do put competitive salary and don't actually put a number. So have any of you gone through this? What was your experiences? I can answer it. Sarah, I obviously can't see you. Have you got an answer for this?
Sorry. I think it's probably okay to ask. I mean, it's kind of something that gets asked in normal interviews, so I wouldn't say this is completely different to something that you'd normally go for a usual kind of job for. I didn't personally ask, and obviously kind of see that there are some that give really good wages, but obviously I know, Oliver, you touched on kind of the average placement kind of salary. So as long as you go in with the mind that it would be around that, I don't think that's too bad. I don't know many people that actually asked at the interview itself, but I don't think it would be, because obviously at the end they ask if you've got any questions for them, and it's good to kind of ask a few questions which can, you know, be about their own job or the company itself. But I think if you kind of ask that as one of the final questions, just as a little question at the end, I don't think they'd be I don't think they'd look too badly upon that.
Yeah, agreed. I think now we obviously employ people. I'd say my advice would be that is one of the main reasons you're doing that job. You know, you're adding value to their business to provide a service that they're going to pay you to do that. That is the simple transaction of a job. So it may feel really weird to ask that question because it's nervous to talk about money, especially in a British society. We don't like to do that very often. But actually, for me, it shows assertiveness, it shows confidence, and it shows an understanding of the whole process of what you're going through. So it'll feel really weird and feel really uncomfortable, but that's where you grow. If you go outside your comfort zone, that'll be a really great way of doing that. So I'd highly recommend doing it. So if you can, or feel comfortable to, give it a go with some friends maybe. I've got another question here. I think it was from Lois. So Lois, you asked, did you all apply for the placement year at the beginning of the academic year? So a bit about, we need to touch on timings of when to send applications and submit them in a day, but what about timings throughout the academic year? Because we've obviously got various different terms, different like reading weeks. So what did you all find work for you, and when was the best time for you to submit your applications?
Me personally, I kind of just was always looking. So I don't think you need
from
to.
When? Always from what?
So from the start of the academic year, as soon as I got into my third year, and I knew I wanted to do the placement before my fourth, I started applying from there, and I don't think I got the LOreal place until I want to say February, March. So in that period, I was literally applying everywhere, and on Tony's fault, I was one of the late applies to LOreal as well. So so it's just so I just think don't worry about the time too much. If it's open, if the vacancy is open and you like the look of it, just apply and don't wait as well. You know, if you're in and in, it's better just to apply and say no at the end than not to do anything and then it closes. So I would just apply when and where you can, and not worry about. But yeah, be early as well, in terms of as the quicker you start, the more companies you can apply for, and so it's a numbers game. Just the more success you can have, it's probability, I think.
Lovely message. Well, to be fair, it's a number. You've both proven it is a numbers game. You know, you've both yourself and Tony have submitted 30 odd applications. I think you had one offer off the back of that. I think Tony got 2. So if you think about success rate there, that's 3-4%. 1 in 30. That's not high, but look where it's got you. So you've got to go through that process to learn, understand where you were going potentially wrong with some, or potentially what you weren't putting yourself in the best light. I think your confidence will grow the more you go through them. Did Sarah or Tony, did you have an answer to that question as well, in terms of when you started looking and what the timings were for you?
All I would probably do is echo what you both said. No, I think everyone here would agree. Oliver, you obviously did a placement when you did a placement too, that the placement application while balancing university is no easy feat. So whenever you do find a time where you can plug away at it, I always would. And like Druv said, it was sort of a throughout the year thing. I remember getting my second offer, which I accepted on Valentine's Day, so February 14th.
Oh, cute.
How cute is that? And that's obviously why I'm still here today. But no, yeah, the placement application process is no easy feat while balancing uni. So whenever you do find the time, reading weeks do sound like a good shout. But I was sort of just doing it whenever I found the moment while balancing the number of modules you do throughout the year.
Yeah. Sarah, anything from yourself?
Kind of the same thing, actually. I'd just say what the other guy said, just to be aware, or maybe, before you kind of start applying, kind of look at the timelines for each different company. For me personally, GSK was quite a bit earlier than a lot of other places. So I think I applied kind of, it would have been around now, actually, kind of early October-ish. I know that theirs are open now, actually. And then I think we kind of had an assessment centre late November kind of thing. So just kind of having an idea maybe of what the deadlines are, and kind of maybe that would kind of, you could then kind of form some sort of priority list if you had quite a few that you wanted to apply to. So yeah, I'd say there are some differences between those dates, so definitely have that in mind as well.
Great feedback. Liz, what happened?
Well, we had a fire alarm in the office. How?
Right.
I mean, that's typical, isn't it? So I just thought I'd pop on to say we're all safe. We're back.
Survived.
And yeah, so we missed the last part of that, but it sounded like an amazing chat and discussion. So I just wanted to say a massive thank you to you all for being part of this and sharing all of your insights and your stories. It's been really, really great. Also, so if students are watching this and thinking, I need a break, we do have a Rate My Placement puppy booth. So I thought I'd just mention that one, because there's lots of puppies and it's great. So yeah, apart from that, that's all I wanted just to say, and I think we've probably got to wrap up this session now. We've got some great time for the booths to meet lots of employers. So if that's everything, I'd just like to say thank you and goodbye all.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Liz, and thanks for me as well. Druv, Sarah, Tony, you've all been absolutely superb. So really, really, really appreciate your time. And anyone who's listening, if you've got questions that you've asked and we haven't come back to them, hopefully we'll do at some point. We'll put them online. And yeah, feel free to contact any of us. I'd love to hear more from you. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your day. We'll speak to you all soon.
Good luck, guys.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck.